and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another, exciting, tremendous, stupendous installment.
You can't call it until it happens.
Well, I can so. It's my program.
You can anticipate it.
Well, welcome to the program, my friends, from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics.
What are the symptoms of altitude sickness? I'm wondering, because...
Well, you get a little confused. You get a little...
we are high.
We are, well, I mean, that's kind of where it comes from. Well, welcome to the program, my friends. It is Friday, and we've got a great show in store for you. Joining us at the top of the hour the top of the second hour is going to be Representative Bill Allemand. Been looking forward to speaking with our friend from Midwest for quite a while. So anyway, he's going to be on the show about 9 o'clock, and we got some big news, too. The Supreme Court lifted the injunction on the Steamboat Legacy Scholarship Act, so we need to talk about that, and that's where we'll begin today. But first, it's Open Line Friday! That's right, my friends. It is Open Line Friday on the program. This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You see, normally during the week, if I open the phone lines up and if I decide to talk about one of your comments, well, then maybe we'll let you on the program. But that is not the case on Friday. On Friday, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. So if you want to be part of the show, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. 8989.
Do you think anybody would notice if I changed that number and then I wouldn't have to deal with that extra little chore over here?
Yeah, but you don't have to deal with anything on Open Line Friday. You just have to listen. See,
that's
yeah, I'll be nice.
Never mind, I would be nice.
Well, anyway, good morning. Again, if you want to be part of the show, the phone number to reach me is 307-374-8989. So my dance card is filling up pretty quickly, at least for the next week. I mean, I finally started making phone calls and booking candidates, people wanting to serve you or serve themselves. Well, you see, that's always an open question. So that's why we have them on the show. So just to give you kind of a roadmap on where we'll be going in the next week. Of course, I will be on the road on Tuesday. We're taking dear old dad to Denver to watch hopefully my Texas Rangers knock the crap out of the last place Colorado Rockies. So I'll be out of pocket for Monday and Tuesday, but we'll be back on Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll have candidate for U.S. House of Representatives Jillian Balow on the program about on Wednesday. See, I'm getting confused already. We'll have Frank Chapman. He's going to be here in the studio at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. At 8:30 that day, so half hour before, we'll have Representative Tony Locke is going to join the program. On Thursday, Jillian Balow will be here at 9:30. Well, that one will be a remote interview. So if you happen to be running for office and you think that you should probably be talking to Wyoming conservatives, the place where you do that is right here. If you want to talk to to any, to Wyoming conservatives as a whole, this is the program because it's the most listened to show, conservative podcast, whatever, in the state. So
I have a dream guest.
you do.
Yes, I do.
Who is your dream guest?
Bo Snerdley.
Oh man,
Wouldn't that be fun?
that would be fun if we could get Bo Snerdley on the program.
You work on that, would you?
Yeah, I try
Put some
that
people on
every
it.
once in a while.
Put some people on it.
You see some comment on social media, and it's kind of like fishing, right? You throw your line out, and maybe you'll catch something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I will work on getting Bo Snerdley on the program. So first, I guess a good question from the audience, from our listeners. They want to know if you're awake, Ken. Are you awake?
I never sleep,
Yeah. Well, actually, that's
so
kind
I'm
of
kind of
true.
in a semi-state.
Well,
most of
is
the
that
time.
all of the time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's get started with the program. First on the agenda is the Wyoming Supreme Court has lifted the injunction against the Wyoming Steamboat Legacy Scholarship Fund Act, whatever you call it. Now, what that is Wyoming's version of the ESA bill, the Education Savings Account bill. And this one, before I even get into the article, I just want to talk kind of briefly about the bill. Generally speaking, I don't think that the government has any place in education. I mean, we have tried it for a really long time, and really what we end up turning out is a bunch of Borg drones. A good friend of mine, sponsor of the show, he often says that if you send your kids to Caesar, you shouldn't be surprised when they come out like little Romans. The truth is that there's nowhere in the Constitution, in the federal Constitution, that says anything about education. Now, there is a part in the Wyoming Constitution. There's a whole story behind that, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I really don't think that we should be funneling a whole bunch of tax dollars towards education. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is all a product of the Industrial Revolution. And, what are you talking about? It used to be, when America was founded, basically everybody was in business for themselves of one type or another.
Sure.
You would go apprentice to someone and learn a trade, and then you'd hang your shingle, and you were in business for yourselves. And that kind of free market economy is where we came. Then comes the Industrial Revolution, and there is a need for worker bees.
Yeah,
People
for
just
sure.
file into the factory on time and stand there and do whatever it is you want them to do, and then go home. And that's about the time that public education started. And that tells you, I think, a little bit about the intent of public education. Is just to give you enough information that you can function, but it really doesn't create, in my mind, especially lately, an independent thinker who's capable of critical thinking, who's capable of looking at the world. It's not what it's meant to do.
Well, no, I don't think so. And I think you have to look at this from, maybe a 30,000-foot level. So our university system, when we started opening up universities at the very founding of this country, different areas of the country would offer a different style, I guess you would say, a different focus in education. And as we moved westward, a lot of Western universities offered more, and just to give you an example, maybe a more agriculturally based education. You move to the other left coast, or the original left coast, I guess, and you might get more industrial education. But depending on where you went to school, you would have a different focus. And, for a long time, employers, in fact, I used to work for a guy in Virginia that's what he would do. He would go to look at different schools and find prospective employees at people who went to different schools. And he would, you get different perspectives, make for a better, well-rounded opinion. And to a lesser degree in state education, that was kind of the case too. If you had a kid that went to school in Cheyenne, for example, or Casper, they might get a very different education than if they went to school in, say, Grable or or Lovell or
That's still true.
or Sublette County. And well, okay, we laugh about
I
it.
just said because coming out of Grable, I got a very different education there. But
I'm sure you did. But no, I mean, the different parts of the state, you would focus on different aspects. But we've moved away from that. and made education into, like Ken said, an assembly line. And so whenever you get government involved in anything, not just education, but in in healthcare and transportation and business, whatever, you cannot craft policy for individual people. The only thing you can do is craft a policy that's the best fit for everybody, and the end result being it's not a good fit for anybody.
Think of this. One thing that the government does do well is the military,
Yeah.
and
One thing.
that's why is because you have to get rid of the independent type of thinking.
Right,
You
which is
have
what
to
boot
create
camp is
someone.
for.
Yeah, you have to create someone who will be a part of the team, who will react and follow orders without thinking about it, and go on. That's what government does. That is not what we want out of the education system.
No, it's not. The whole point is to create an independent thinker, somebody who is capable of critical analysis, to ask questions. The point of an education is to teach you how to think, not to teach you what to think. Now, the ESA bill, the Legacy Scholarship Bill, is a little bit different than that. To the broad strokes of it are that each, if you want to, send your kid to a private school or to homeschool them, there's, what is it, a $7,000? Yeah, a $7,000. I'm going to use the word stipend, but that's a little misleading because it's not like we're writing a check.
I like thinking of a rebate, although that's not really accurate either.
No. So the way that it
people
works
don't pay that much.
is the State Board of Education has a list of approved vendors, right, for all sorts of things, books and, computers and all those. And whatever you need to facilitate your kid's education, you can go to one of those approved vendors and you can get whatever material you need to educate them, whether it be, a Chromebook or, maybe it's a textbook, or I don't even know if we use textbooks anymore. But it's not a check, right? It's a stipend. Now, in an effort to piggyback on a bill that was probably already going to pass, redcoats in the Wyoming legislature added universal pre-K to the bill. And that's something that Wyoming never had before. We didn't have public funding of, pre-kindergarten or preschool. But that was added to it. And that has been on the wish list of the American left for a really long time. We already got them from 7 years on. How much more damage could we do if we had them from, 5 years old, 4 years old on? From cradle to grave, that's what the liberals want. And so that was added to the bill, to the ESA bill, and then it passed. Now, that one provision caused a lot of conservatives to vote against it. Now, again, while I don't think that, government ought to have, any more influence on education that is absolutely necessary, certainly state government, you add on top of it the universal pre-K, and for me, that ended up being a no-go. It turned it into one of those bills that sounds great all the way up until the end, and then on third reading, they slap an amendment on it, and you got to vote against it. From the Open Range Record, an article entitled "Wyoming Supreme Court Lifts Injunction on Steamboat Legacy Scholarship." Full screen it there. One of the most significant findings centered on the facts that the parents involved in the lawsuit admitted that they had no intention of using the ESA program themselves. The opinion noted that the plaintiffs voluntarily keep their children in public schools and oppose participation in the program, making claims of direct injury speculative. And what that's referring to is, in order to sue, you have to have standing. And you have to be personally affected by, whatever it is that you're suing over. Whether it's a government policy or, somebody's done something to you. You have to be involved, right? You have to be injured to file a claim. And in this case, the claim was filed by the Wyoming Education Association and a couple of parents, none of whom really had anything to do with the program. Let me read you the opening paragraphs. And I quote, "The Wyoming Supreme Court issued a major decision Thursday, May 14th, in the lawsuit over Wyoming School Choice Program, reversing the lower court's injunction that had temporarily blocked the Steamboat Legacy Scholarship Act from moving forward. At the center of the case was whether Wyoming would begin distributing the education savings account funds to families while the broader constitutional challenge continues in court. In a 14-page opinion, the court ruled that the district court abused its discretion when it halted the program before the case was fully litigated. The act, passed in 2025, allows eligible Wyoming students to receive up to $7,000 annually, just like I described before this. The program was funded through a $30 million general fund appropriation. The lawsuit was brought by the Wyoming Education Association, along with several parents, arguing that the program violates multiple provisions of the Wyoming Constitution, including the state's constitutional duty to provide public education and prohibitions on public funding flowing to private institutions. Several questions here. Who is the Wyoming Education Association? It is a teachers' union. That is, teachers and those involved in education pay dues to the Wyoming Education Association, who in turn advocates on their behalf. Really, what they do is advocate for more money going into, administrative. And the Wyoming Education Association pushes a lot of really liberal stuff. Several times on the program, I have told you about their Safe and Just Schools cadre. Maybe we need to do a little review of that.
The one thing they don't push is the truth.
No, they don't.
They flat out lied to their members many times about, the funding, the school funding, and came up with alternative truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Which made our job difficult. Now we got people who, the teachers who are being fed a line and they don't really understand just what's going on. So, not good.
Well, no, none of it is. The truth is that the Wyoming Education Association, which is interesting, they've taken down the website. Well, that's interesting. So the Safe and Just Schools cadre, and I've got it on the website on cowboystatepolitics.com. If you look hard enough, you can find the logo of this group from the Wyoming Education Association.
Yeah, that's the one with the fist. Yeah.
It's got the fist in it. And so anyway, it's a teachers union. And, in Wyoming, we don't have a lot of, powerful unions. But they go to extreme measures to try to convince you that really they're just an advocacy outfit. Let me give you an example here. So the Wyoming Tribune Eagle this morning, let me just see your slideshow. Here we go. From current slide. In a piece on the Wyoming Tribune Eagle, talking about this ruling, they say that the Wyoming Education Association, which represents states and states teachers and other educators, but is not a formal union. Then from the Cowboy, that is a public education advocacy group. Okay, all of that is code language for what a union is. So from the U.S. Department of Labor, this is what a labor union is. Quote, a labor union is a group of two or more employees who join together to advance common interests such as wages, benefits, schedules, and other employment terms and conditions. Okay, WEA pretty much meets that one. Joining together or acting collectively, workers represented by unions have a powerful voice that strengthens their ability to negotiate with their employer about concerns. Higher wages, health insurance, vacation days, paid sick days, retirement benefits are just a few examples of what workers achieve through their unions. Workers also pursue other enhancements such as flexible scheduling, protections against harassment, and safer working conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So why is it that the Wyoming Education Association doesn't want you to think that they're a union? Well, because if they are, it kind of flies in the face of Wyoming being a right-to-work state. I mean, there's lots of other, ancillary things that go along with that. But their allies in the Wyoming media are going to great lengths to convince you that the WEA is not a union. Let's see here. The court also rejected the argument that simply funding educational options outside the public school system automatically violates Wyoming's constitutional obligations towards public education. The argument with the WEA is that we weren't adequately funding Wyoming education. We talked about this yesterday on the program. Well, how is it that if you're getting an increase in your funding and at the same time the parents are able to go send their kids to private school or educate them themselves, how does that affect Wyoming public schools being funded adequately? It doesn't, and the court rejected that. Importantly, however, the court did not rule that the program was constitutional. Instead, the justices made it clear that this decision only addressed the injunction, that it should remain in place, whether or not it should remain in place. The broader constitutional questions surrounding school choice, ESA funding, Article 7 education obligations are still unresolved and will continue. And so that lawsuit is still going. It's just the court allowed the implementation of the ESA bill.
So I'm going to say something that's not going to be very popular with a lot of my conservative friends.
You?
But I hope that this
No.
is ruled unconstitutional, and I hope that for two reasons. One reason is, well, three reasons. The first reason being I think it is unconstitutional, directing state money to private institutions. That being said, that's exactly what the Wyoming Business Council has done. That's what city and county governments do through GPET funds. I want to establish that that is constitutional or not. And if they can do it with GPET, if they can do it with the Wyoming Business Council or whatever comes of that, then they should be able to do it in education.
Yes.
So that would solve that. But I hope that they keep it out, and that those funds don't go to private people who want to teach for this reason. With the shekels go the shackles.
Yes.
And you heard it. You were there on the House floor when we started having the debates about what are we going to require of homeschoolers or of,
I mean, it was a
private
long
schools.
list.
You know, if private schools are going to take state money, they're going to have to teach this and not teach that. They're going to have to this and not that. And it's insane. And all we're doing is expanding public school rules into private schools. And that and the pre-K thing is why I was a solid no.
You know, one of the more interesting discussions, and again, I will probably get a little bit of pushback on this. I see, and by the way, we've got my pal Tony is online watching the program. Good morning, Tony. And if you want to weigh in, give me a call. That phone number is 307-374-8989. But one of the more interesting discussions is there was an amendment, a proposed amendment on the ESA bill that would have mandated, I can't remember how they put it, but essentially it was civics education. You have to teach the Constitution. You have to teach the Pledge of Allegiance. You have to teach all of these things. Now, most people would say, well, yeah, of course it's a good thing to teach the Constitution. But the conservative argument there is, now, wait a minute. If you're telling them they have to teach civics, which I think they should, by the way, I think that's a good thing. But if you're forcing them to teach that, what else are you going to force them to do? That was the central point of the argument.
There's also a prohibition in Wyoming against the legislature being able to dictate curriculum.
Yes.
And that's a problem. And Pepper, bless her heart, you know, she brought the thing about she wants every kid to watch the development of a baby, and it's a terrific film, and everybody should see it. But as long as things are the way they are, and the legislature can't dictate, then we're violating our own concept. So
and you know, there's this common misconception that all homeschool kids are not educated adequately. Now, I've heard this argument from a lot of people involved in public education. Well, how do we know that these kids are being properly educated? Well, first, you don't. Secondly, not your job. But third, I think that's trying to use the exception to prove the rule, because just about every kid not all, just about every kid that I've met that has been homeschooled has been far more advanced than their counterparts in the public school system. Mm-hmm. Over the past year, I taught a group of homeschool kids how to debate. I taught them, hey, this is what they're doing in public school. Hopefully we'll get there to where we can have a debate with them. But this is how you do it. This is how you research. This is how you write an argument. And I can tell you for a fact, those kids, and maybe they were the exception. I don't think so. But those kids, far more advanced I mean, better researchers, better critical thinkers. I mean, I really don't think that the argument on the left against homeschooling really holds that much water.
And I need to say this: most homeschoolers, most what I consider real homeschoolers, are not interested in the ESA funds because they understand the shekels
True.
and shackles
Yeah.
argument, and they just all they want is to be left alone. Let me do my thing, and that's great. But it also affects private schools, and having some experience with private schools in the past, um, private schools should be thinking the same thing. They
Yes.
don't want those strings. Um, so
You know, good friend of mine. Her name's Leah Southwell. She works for the John Birch Society. Good
yeah,
friend of mine.
I like Leah.
She is one of her big things is that she is an advocate of the little schoolhouse. So if we hop in our time machine and go back, I don't know, 100 years, maybe not even that far, maybe 75 years, many smaller communities had their own little schoolhouse, and they would find a teacher to educate the kids, and it would be the one room schoolhouse, and you teach them all at the same time. And for a very long time, before Jimmy Carter, that was the case with a lot of communities. You just had each community would have their own little school, and you'd teach your
My
kids how to read and do math.
my brothers attended a school in Shell. A little, I think we had 6 students there,
Right.
and that was 50 years ago. So it's not that far removed.
Yeah, but I mean, anytime you get government involved, you end up accepting the shackles. And with this case, I think it's great that that parents can homeschool their kids. And if there are no strings attached, which I don't know how you can give, and that's another problem in the Wyoming Constitution, it says that you can't give money away to any group that is not under the quote absolute control of the state, which means if you're going to take public dollars, it means the state can tell you what to do. And the Constitution is very clear on that one. Maybe during the break we can look up what provision that is, and we can give you the citation so you can go look at it. But the long and the short of all this is that the lawsuit, the WEA lawsuit against the ESA bill, is still going on. However, the Supreme Court lifted the injunction, and so the Wyoming Department of Education can implement the ESA bill as it was intended while the lawsuit progresses. Now, there's a big, I think there's a big danger here. What if we get this thing, fully implemented, and then the court strikes it down again? Well, then we're backing up, and then the folks that came to rely on that $7,000 a year, well, then they're kind of left out in the cold. But there again, I mean, that's kind of the result of being dependent upon the government. All right, so we're
Our
going to
friend
take. Go
Sharon,
ahead.
our friend Sharon wrote in. She said that there is a one-room schoolhouse out by where they live. So
All right.
apparently
well,
they're not done either.
well, no, I don't think that they are. There's that one. God, there's a big fight with the Department of Education over this one, but it's a school that's way out in the boonies. These people live like an hour from
They're way north of
from-
everything else in the county.
yeah, way north of anything resembling civilization. But they too have to pay taxes, so why shouldn't they get a proper education?
Yeah, and one of the problems with that makes remote schools so expensive is if you're going to go into public education, you got to have all the opportunities everybody else.
Right.
How do you even make that feasibly possible? Which reminds me,
Uh-oh.
Sheridan County School District 3.
Yeah, let's talk about old
Yeah,
Chase.
I feel so bad.
Yeah, I feel really terrible for
I,
him.
I wish I knew what happened. I really don't know. Have you had?
Well, they've been pretty
any-
tight-lipped about it.
Yeah.
I read several different pieces, one on the Cowboy, one on the Sheridan Press. And District Number 3, they're being tight-lipped about the firing of their superintendent of schools, Chase Christensen. And the best comment I saw was from Dusty Hackett, who is a former school board member, and I happen to know Dusty and his wife Gina. And the only thing he told the Cowpie was, "Well, I just don't think that he was a good fit for our community." And there's probably a good reason why, because Chase Christensen is also the guy who was hopping in bed with the Center for American Progress on their education forum. So you can't take a very, very liberal institution uh, participate in, in their town halls, try to implement their policies in a little town like Claremont or Arvada. That's not going to work.
That was interestingly a very contentious decision, a vote of 3-2, and when they voted
To kick him out.
to boot him, the other two left the school board. So
Yeah,
there's
they
two
resigned.
openings for good people.
There you go. And okay, so again, there's another filling of a vacancy that has to happen. So anyway, yeah, that one, they're being pretty tight-lipped about it. Hopefully we'll find out more why they gave Chase, the liberal Chase Christensen, his pink slip. But
Don't worry about Chase. He'll be fine. He'll get himself a good posh job in no time at all. I'm confident.
I don't see any reason to worry about him. He claimed he may run for the state legislature, which, okay, that brings up an interesting question. Who would you vote for? Would you vote for Marilyn Connolly or would you vote for Chase Christensen? I don't know, man.
I am no fan of Chase, but I would I shouldn't even say it.
See?
I like
It's
to have a
toughie.
good, intelligent discussion.
All right. So it's Open Line Friday, 307-374-8989. Give me a call if there's something you want to talk to. We'll be back in a minute. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only getting stronger. My friends, this program is expanding faster than, I don't know, wet bent night on an interstate. Now, that's not a very good analogy, but it's getting bigger. Make sure that you pay attention to Cowboy state
I
politics.
keep thinking of Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, boy. No. God, why would you do that to me?
Well, you talk about things getting bigger.
Well, I mean, that's true. That's true. She always expands, never contracts. Welcome back to the program, my friends. Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It's Open Line Friday. If you got something on your mind, go ahead and give me a call. 307-374-8989. At the top of the hour, about 25-ish minutes, we'll have Representative Bill Allemand on the program with us. He's got some splaining to do. Okay, not really. He's running for a re-election, and we're going to talk to him about that. He's been kind of a controversial figure as of late with his opposition to the radiant energy, the proposed radiant thing there in Midwest. So we'll talk to him about that and about his reelection campaign, and may ask him a question or two that's different. So before the break, we told you that hey, the Wyoming Constitution says that there it is. That no appropriation shall be made for charitable, industrial, educational, or benevolent purposes to any person, corporation, or community not under the absolute control of the state, nor to any denominational or sectarian institution or association. So in other words, unless the state of Wyoming completely has whatever it is you're going to give money to, firmly in their control, you can't do it. That means you can't donate for benevolent purposes. And there's a couple of different places in the Constitution
That means
that refer to that.
your ESA funds, your $7,000, shouldn't go to a parochial school.
No, nope. You can't have any sectarian organization. And so
And that's not a value judgment. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what it says, and we swore an oath to support and defend it.
well, but here's the other thing. It frustrates me sometimes that we try to get around the Constitution. We don't try to work within the bounds that the Constitution sets up. We make it our mission to try to get around it. Hey, how can we get around this provision of no money to sectarian organizations? Well, we're not really giving it to the schools. We're giving it to parents, and we're not even really giving the money. It's a reimbursement.
That's the same thing that happened in the Garden of Eden. Did God really say?
Did he really mean that?
Yeah. And
10,000 fact checkers say he didn't.
That's what lawyers do.
But anyway, so the lawsuit is still going on, and we'll find out what's going on there later on. So there's an op-ed in the Cowboy by our old pal, the leftist Scott Clem. By the way, he's running for county commissioner again. I'm sure we're all very, very excited for him. Not really. But his
Scott Clem can't run.
Oh, God, that's terrible. All right. So his op-ed says pride, principle, and who's really pulling the strings. And, he's been on this, anti-freedom caucus binge for quite a while. And this is just another example of it. But there's some major problems with his op-ed. So the first point here, and this is available on the Cowboy if you want to read it for yourself. And he says the Secretary of State and the Fourth Amendment, as troubling as that is, it pales in comparison to what happened when the Secretary of State, Chuck Gray, voluntarily handed over unredacted private voter data to the U.S. Department of Justice. Let's be clear about what this means. The federal government does not run state elections, and the 23rd plank of the platform explicitly opposes any federal takeover or interference in state, federal, or local elections. It has no constitutional authority to demand private voter information from sovereign states without a warrant. All right, so what voter information was handed over? Is it a voter social security number? Well, yeah, that was included, but who did Chuck Gray give that to? Oh yeah, the people who issue social security numbers. And what about a driver's license number? Typically, you show that to the clerk when you register to vote. Is that private information? Not really. How often do you use your driver's license? And isn't that number searchable by just about every government agency anyway? What about your birth date? Yeah, that kind of social security card, driver's license. Your address. Oh, yep, that's on your driver's license too. I don't know. What about your if you're a male or a female? Well, that's also on there. So really, whatever information that to the Wyoming Secretary of State gave to the Department of Justice, none of it's that private anyway because the people he gave it to already have it.
You're talking driver's licenses, and as you're talking about all the things that are on it, I'm thinking we're going to need a bigger driver's license.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but on the back of your driver's license, you'll see not really a barcode; it's a scannable. Maybe it is a barcode.
No, it's kind of a barcode, yeah.
Anyway, does anybody out there have any idea how much information about you is stored there?
All of it.
Pretty much.
Yep. And, I love asking this question when I go into a gas station to get buy gas or, get a drink or something. And they say, well, let me scan your ID because, I want to get a can of chew. And I always ask them, hey, where does that information go? Once you scan my ID, where does it go? And of course, the clerks, they don't know anything. They're just told, yeah, you got to scan every ID. But where exactly does it go? Which database does it go into? What are they tracking? Are they tracking my gasoline purchases or, that I happen to buy a can of chew or,
If you go to, I think it's Maverick stores, you can't buy a 6-pack without it being scanned.
Yeah. Yep. They have to scan your ID. And I just want to know where that goes. So, Scott, you're off your rocker trying to tell people that this was, somehow private, unredacted information. It's not. The people that Chuck Gray gave all this information to already have it anyway.
It probably should be, but that's not
the point.
argument.
Yeah, the point is, Clem is arguing that this is all confidential information that was disclosed to the federal government. How stupid can you possibly be? They already have it all. Don't you file a tax return every year? I mean, okay, maybe they're different pieces of the same government, but they still got all your information. It's not confidential.
What do you think all these data centers they want to build are for?
Oh, yeah. To store every little, pause and click and scroll that you do.
I really don't know, but how much data do we need? And I won't get into this right now, but as we've talked earlier, this is the Tower of Babel coming back.
Oh, for sure. To a great degree. Now, here's the other part of Clem's piece of vomit that he calls an opinion column. Here's what he says. When ambition overrides integrity, now he's referring to my pal Rebecca registering for the Constitution Party and running for governor. And here's what he says, quote, the first example comes from Jackson, where Rebecca Bexdale, a GOP state committee woman for Teton County and the center of the check gate, has now switched parties to position herself to run against Eric Barlow if he becomes the Republican nominee for governor. At least he got that part right, that she's not, running in the primary, nor can she. Listen to this next one. For years, she and many others have rightly warned that Democrats re-registering as Republicans to manipulate GOP primaries is unethical. It is, because you're claiming to be something that you're not. We just recently had a Supreme Court decision about this with candidates. You cannot register as a Republican if you are a Democrat and then tell voters that you're a Republican. That's entirely unethical. And anybody who registered as a Republican who was previously a Democrat, you're unethical too. The next paragraph. Now she's done what she spoke against, switching parties not out of conviction, but as a preemptive strike against her own party's potential nominee. This isn't strategy, it's hypocrisy. And it's the kind of political maneuver that reveals a deeper problem, the idolatry of power. Okay, so first question, is there that much difference between the Constitutional Party and the Republican Party platform? Is there really that much difference? No. There's more of an emphasis on the 10th Amendment than you might see in the Republican Party platform, but that's still there. There's not that much difference. Every plank in the Wyoming Republican Party platform, you can relate it to the Constitution pretty easily.
Yeah, there's certainly not that much difference ideologically, but what I don't like about what he's doing there is he's assigning motive.
Yes.
He's sitting from the outside and saying, this is why she's doing this. This is what she's thinking. This is that.
Yep.
And that is a step far too far.
Yeah, well, yeah. And he's wrong. So and I think and I'll have to go back and listen to it again, but I think in the interview that I did with Rebecca, what was that? That was Wednesday on the program. Well, I did one Tuesday and Wednesday. on the program. But anyway, when Rebecca announced that she was joining the Constitution Party and running for governor
That was Wednesday.
Wednesday, her point was principles over party. And she specifically, in her campaign announcement, she specifically said that her principles don't dictate which party that she happens to be a member of. And secondarily, the principles of the Constitution Party are largely similar to the Republican Party. And so what what Scott Clem is trying to argue here is that you're abandoning your principles, which is exactly the opposite.
The left is always pointing a finger at those of us on the right and assigning our motives. And I think a lot of that is just projection.
It is. Because what did Scott Clem do? Scott Clem previously called himself a conservative. I mean, he was, and I would say
From the outside, he looked like one for a while.
Yeah. At best, Scott Clem was a 70, 75% conservative voter when when you boil it all down. Largely conservative. Well, since he's become a county commissioner, man, that guy will spend money like Steve Harshman. Okay, maybe not as bad as not as bad as Steve Harshman. But I mean, as a county commissioner, he's taken some very, very left-leaning stances. So don't talk to me about hypocrisy, Scott Clem. Why don't you take a look in the mirror before you write your next column? Because you're completely off base with this one. Here's the last paragraph I'll point out. Quote, when someone is willing to abandon their own stated principles, actually she's done exactly the opposite of that, to maintain influence, it suggests that people that they believe God needs help choosing Wyoming's leaders, as if the Trinity needs to be a quartet to ensure the right outcome. It's desperation, and it gives the GOP a bad look. Well, maybe the GOP deserves a bad look. I mean, at the national level, at the state level, the GOP has done some things that I wholeheartedly disagree with. There's been an attempt to consolidate power. I've heard some rumblings from the RNC that they're going back to their log cabin Republican days. So there's a lot of questions. And though I don't fall into this group, there's a lot of people who've become disenchanted with both parties. And let's be perfectly honest. When you look at the Congress, the House, and the Senate, the House is way more conservative than the Senate, but do they accomplish anything? I mean, really, do they get anything done? Not a whole heck of a lot. The House passes a whole bunch of bills, then they go over to the Senate and die. Oh, where does that sound familiar from? I mean, that's exactly what happens in Cheyenne. And so, if you're part of a body and you don't get anything done, you can't cry foul when your constituency says, why should we support either one of you? I mean, you both do exactly the same thing. And now, I don't think that's true of everybody. I think that Representative Hageman has done a fantastic job. I don't think that Harriet would, I'm pretty sure I can say this. I don't think that she would sacrifice her principles to go along with her votes in Congress. I just don't think that she would do that. But now there are other people that are straight up redcoats. Okay, that Mitch McConnell, great example. That guy goes along with whomever is in the White House. And so you can't blame voters for being disenchanted with political parties. And you can't blame a candidate for saying, look, I believe in these principles. And if you believe in these principles, we have to do everything we can to make sure that a liberal, Eric Barlow, who votes with the Democrats his entire career, 80% of the time, yet claims to be a Republican, you can't in good conscience do nothing and let him become the governor. Now, all of that being said, I don't necessarily know how I feel about this attempt. I haven't made a decision on it, but I will say that a Eric Barlow governorship would be a disaster for this state. If you think that Mark Gordon is bad, Eric Barlow will be worse. He's way more of a liberal. He's way more of a radical environmentalist than Mark Gordon thought of being. I know that's saying a lot because Mark Gordon was the treasurer of the Sierra Club for a while. That he's a big climate change fanatic. That he's done a lot of things that, frankly, are just not conservative at all. But Eric Barlow would be worse. So Scott, why don't you take a look in your mirror and find out that it is you, not so much my friend, that is becoming a hypocrite. Hypocrite. If I could spell it for you, I would. All right. So there's Scott Clem. Enough of that drivel. Let's see here. You know what? Let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll get set up for our interview. And when we come back, we'll talk to Representative Bill Allemand. Back in a minute. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It is Open Line Friday, my friends. If you want to be part of the show, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. You know, during the rest of the week, you kind of got to talk about what's on my mind. Not on Friday. On Friday, we'll open it up and we'll just... open the gate, leave it wide open, and just find out what is going to happen. I know it's dangerous. Ken is over there shaking his head. He doesn't like Open Line Friday. I don't know if I can blame him. I mean, it's kind of, it has an air of, not knowing what's going to happen. So anyway, one of my favorite guys in the Wyoming legislature is Bill Allemand. Bill is... there's a small group of people they'll just shoot you straight no matter what it is. Doesn't matter what's going on. They're going to tell you exactly.
Bill can shoot straight.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. So anyway, I'd like to welcome to the program, friend of the program, Representative Bill Allemand. Bill, welcome to the show.
Good morning, David, Ken. Thank you guys very much for having me today.
Well,
really
of course.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we could find time to fit you in. Are you in Midwest out at your ranch, or are you?
No, I'm home today, about 20 miles from Midwest, 40 miles from Casper, enjoying the big, beautiful Wyoming sunshine today. Wished we'd get some rain.
Well, that's for sure, man. I mowed my yard yesterday, and I realized, oh crap, I got to turn on the sprinklers. Well, anyway, Bill, it has been a really long time since you've been on the show. So why don't you take a few minutes and tell my audience about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a small business owner here. I have a couple trucks in the Salt Creek oil field in Midwest. I have 4 children, 9 grandchildren, who are all doing very great, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them. I live here on my brother's ranch. I live in God's country.
It is beautiful out there.
I'm surrounded by big cliffs, and I get about 5 to 10 miles less wind than up on the hill. So that's a good thing.
Fair enough. All right. So, as I understand it, you've decided to run for re-election, and you're in House 58, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what convinced you to run for re-election?
We've got numerous things that we started that we don't have done, that we've got to get done. And I'm there to do my very best to protect my district, which is Midwest, Edgerton, Homer Hills, bar none, North Casper, Vista West, and around the airport. And I will fight for those people. I've proven that in the past, and I will prove that in the future if that's where we have to go.
Now, at times, Bill, you've been kind of a controversial figure on a couple of different issues. Probably the biggest one was the radiant energy. Now, I guess a couple of questions for you. One, are you in favor of nuclear power? And if you are or not, I'd like you to explain your opposition to the whole radiant energy thing, because that was a hot topic for a while.
I'm very pro-nuclear. Did I say that right, Ken? Ken's always corrected me on my pronunciation of nuclear.
No, it's actually nuclear.
I am pro-nuclear.
You were close.
Yeah. But bar none was a little bit different story. They were wanting to store radioactive hazardous waste less than a half mile from their kids' playground, from their homes. The people of bar none said, no, we do not want this. And I stood up with them, and Radiant packed up and left. And it was the grassroots that did it. And we've got these fights yet ahead of us, because I don't know that Radiant isn't still looking at bar none. I don't think it's over.
Okay. I kind of have the same opinion. I don't have a problem with nuclear power. I have a problem with nuclear waste. And I've seen a lot of stuff online. It's not in my backyard. Well, you're darn right. I don't want nuclear waste in my backyard, and there is a big reason why there isn't a federal depository for it, because nobody wants it.
So I met
David. Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I met with the Radiant folks for a couple of hours and asked a lot of questions. And they were questions about, the storage of this stuff. And I'll be frank with you, I did not like the answers that I was not getting. There were a lot of issues in my mind, and I went in there hopeful that maybe I could come out and support what they were trying to do for the economic reasons. And I'm also pro-nuclear. And that didn't happen. I came away from that much more distressed about it. And so I commend you, Bill, for fighting that fight. And I know it had some great personal cost to it. We won't get into that. But from where I sit, you did the right thing.
Well, I'm going to start at the beginning on this, and shut me down when you want.
Okay.
But I started hearing rumors about this company coming into Wyoming, making these small reactors. And I was kind of excited about it. And the more studying I did about it, I found out, well, this is happening in bar none. So then I really got interested and really went to work. I put a couple very intelligent people to studying it and digging into it for me. And one thing we found out, that it was happening a year before even I knew about it.
Oh.
it was going on behind the sheets in the darkness of the night. And I didn't like that to start with. And so I met with Radiant many times. Matt Wilson's a very good guy. I like Matt. But what I didn't like about Radiant, first off, it's experimental. Nothing they had was facts on paper. They would tell you this fact and that fact, but they knew nothing. And they said, if this fact doesn't work, well, we'll just change it.
We'll just change the facts to suit our opinion.
You do not do that a half mile from my kids' playground. And that's what the folks at Bar None said. And it wasn't just Bar None, it was Vista West was also pretty disturbed about this.
So let me ask you a question, Bill. I don't mean to interrupt you. So if the whole nuclear waste question could be resolved, that is, all right, we're not gonna put, a nuclear waste storage facility right next to the playground. If they could resolve that, would you be in favor of, a similar type of business?
It goes more than just the waste. It's trucking the waste up and down our highways. If it wasn't for that, and somebody said, oh yes, I live 20 miles from town, on my ranch, I'll put it. If he wanted it, fine, let's pay him to do it. But we still have the problem of bringing this waste up and down Wyoming highways. And we all know how I-80 is in the winter. This is something we really don't want or need.
Yeah, well, it's as you know, I was pretty well opposed to it myself. Ken?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in there a little bit. Part of what bothered me about it was it makes Wyoming become the suppository for the rest of the world. These things are manufactured there and they're sent out, and then when it's time to refuel them, they come back to be refueled there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bill. So that's where they're refilled. And then that waste is here from all over the world. All these military installations that could use that. And rather than them being responsible for that waste, we ended up getting saddled with it. And I think that's my biggest problem.
Yeah, I didn't like the whole situation. And, I wasn't in the middle of it, but just the whole idea of storing nuclear waste in the state, I just don't like it. I mean, there's a reason why other states don't want it, and it's because it's radioactive waste.
Well, this is something I really have never gotten down to the bottom of. But if we had nuclear waste stored in Bar None, it goes under the Nuclear Regulatory
the NRC
Commission. And it doesn't matter what state law is. Could they store waste from everywhere else in the United States in Bar None? That's something I've asked many times. I've been told yes. I've been told no. I don't know, but it is a possibility, and it's one that we can't afford to take.
Okay, fair enough. So let me ask you another perhaps delicate question. You've had some issues in the news. Let me just ask you where you're at with your whole legal situation.
David, I would love to talk about that, but on advice of my attorney, I can't.
Fair enough.
Will say that my case is going well, and my next court date is in September. And the reason it is in September was not my wish. I wanted it in May. But I had to sign a piece of paper saying that I would forego a speedy trial or I was in court the last day of session.
Okay. All right. That's
and I could not do that to the people of 58.
Okay. All right. One more question.
And it may not have been the last day, but it was right in there close.
Okay. One more question, then I'll leave you alone about it. You and Agent 29 are headed to Washington, D.C. for a big meeting there. And there was a piece in the, I don't remember where I read it, probably in the Cowboy. Yeah, probably in the Cowboy. How you don't have to do any alcohol testing while you're in Washington, D.C. Can you explain that for me?
I'm on call at 24 hours a day, pretty much, to do alcohol testing randomly. And so what I did I did feel that it was an honor to go to Washington, D.C. So I talked to my attorney. We asked the judge if we could forego it for 3 days.
Okay.
And he approved that. I am to be under random testing just shortly before, and I have to be tested as soon as I get back.
Okay. All right. Fair
I-
enough.
And I'm working that out with the center now.
I just want to say this too, Bill. You and I were roommating when a lot of this came up, and I commend you on the job that you've done. And you're going to be there with a whole bunch of us. You may not be blowing into a tube, but we're going to be around you the whole time, and we're holding you accountable.
I understand that. And when I lived with you, you held me accountable. I'm on 5 months. I never looked at myself as a heavy drinker, but I've been 5 months without a drink of anything.
Hey, congratulations.
And
Yes.
I plan on kind of making that the life choice.
Hey, I'm proud of you, Bill. You know, as a former professional alcoholic, you see, I retired at the top of my game. I know how hard that is, and I commend you for it. All right, let's move on.
David, it was not hard. I had no cravings. I had no wants. I just walked away.
That's because you were
And
hanging with
left it
good
behind me.
people that kept you entertained.
Yeah. You and John Bear.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So, if you're successful in your re-election bid, what do you want to do next session in the Wyoming legislature? What are you running on?
I don't like this, but at the end of the day, we're probably going to be running on data centers. I wish that was not the case, but the more studying I'm doing on these things, and we have one on the which is not in my district. It's on the Natrona-Converse County line, and I've had several people already contact me because they know I'm a fighter to get involved in this. And the more and more I look at it, I don't know what to do. I don't like it. I do not want it in my backyard, so how can I expect it to be put in your backyard? Other than that, I am going to work again to get the nuclear issue on our ballot for the people to vote whether they want nuclear storage in the state or not. That's pretty important to me, and it's pretty important to my district. We would have got it this year, but since it was a budget year, we ran out of a few votes. But that's pretty important to me. The business council is very important to me because we're spending way too much money that is going nowhere. Many things on that order are very important to me.
Okay, all right. You know the data center thing. Ken and I were talking about it before we came on the air this morning, and aside from my questions of what are you going to do with all those computers, my biggest concern, I think, and this is probably the concern of a lot of people, is where are they getting the water? I mean, that's a very precious resource, and and this year in particular, we don't have a lot of it to spare. So I think those data centers consume a tremendous amount of water. I mean, that's my biggest concern with it. What are they going to do with that?
Up to 50 million gallons a day.
Holy cow.
And we don't have that kind of water. So they talk about a loop system.
Yeah, a closed loop.
And these loop systems using Wyoming water has got to have a lot of chemicals in it to reduce the scale and all the impurities that's in our natural water. So when they put all these chemicals in it, where does this water go when they're done with it? Whether it is a closed loop system and they only have to change it out every month or so, they say every 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
But when Radiant came in, they said a lot too. And I'm having problems here, David, because I don't know where to go to find the correct information. I cannot go to the companies because they're going to lie to me. I know that from the start. The internet, I can find whatever I want to find on the internet. I want the true facts, so I plan on finding a big data center and visiting them this summer.
Well, I think that's the problem with a lot of these things, Bill, is that it's newer technology, and I don't think that probably anybody has any answers about it. And I mean, the water question, the electricity question. I mean, there's another one right there. If you're going to have a big giant data center, it takes a tremendous amount of electricity. I mean, does that mean? And I'd be all in favor of firing up a couple more generators at Dave Johnston Power Plant. But where's the electricity going to come from? What's that going to do to electricity rates? Where's the water? I mean, these are all questions that I don't know that there's an answer to.
There's technology out there that's looking at building these things in space, which to
That'd be a
me,
good place for them.
to me is an interesting
It's
concept.
just come up in the news last couple days that in California-Nevada line, I think it's Lake Tahoe, there's 50,000 homes that the electric company says that they are going to shut their electricity off within the next year because the data center needs it.
I read that as
In
well.
Utah, they're looking at building a 40,000 acre data center. What good?
That's bigger than Washington D.C.
Yes, it is. How is Wyoming benefiting from these data centers? How is the United States benefiting from these data centers? And I understand, I've heard that the Chinese are ahead of us in data centers.
That wouldn't surprise me.
China has 1,800 data centers.
How long
We have
before,
around 5,400.
how long, and that's kind of where I was going with the space thing, how long before these things are obsolete and we're left with these hulking monstrosities and whatever else is left there that, you can't even throw a computer in the dump theoretically because there's chemicals and heavy metals and other things that are in there.
Yeah.
So there's
Well,
a lot of
and-
unanswered questions.
That's a lot like radiant and nuclear energy. With natrium and all these other, not natrium, but there's many other products that's coming forward that is a lot less harmful than uranium. And is all this going to be obsolete in 5-10 years? What about these data centers? Are they going to be obsolete and we're left with a huge acreage of junk?
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are all important questions.
We could train soldiers for urban warfare in them.
Yeah, you could. All right, one last question. So you, I guess I'll just put it bluntly. So one of the big narratives in the Wyoming media is all about the Freedom Caucus. Everybody has Freedom Caucus derangement syndrome. What would be your response, Bill, to those individuals who just say that we need to get rid of the Freedom Caucus and get them out of the legislature and go back to the good old boys club? What would be your response?
In jest, I agree with them. Because Ed Cooper told me that they were to send me a check for $30,000 and I haven't got it.
And they're delinquent.
Can I start charging them interest? I am a very proud member of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, except they haven't sent me my check. I have never been told one time by the Freedom Caucus how to vote.
I don't think anybody could.
I've never received any money, any financial support from the Freedom Caucus at all. What I have received from the Freedom Caucus is information, very valuable information that I feel I can trust. And what I say to these people, tell me one thing, give me one example of what the Freedom Caucus has done that you disagree with. And if you do disagree with it, you probably should be in the Democrat Party.
All right. Well, Bill, appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
My phone number is 307-277-0902. I have one phone that is my work phone, my personal phone and my political phone. I don't answer every call because I'm out of service a lot. You leave me a message, I will call you back, or text me and I will call back. I return every call. My website is Bill458. My email is billshot307@gmail.com. And I look forward to talking to anybody about anything.
All right. Well, Bill, I appreciate your time this morning. Good luck on your campaign, and I'm sure we'll be talking, in the future. But go ahead and let me know if on any of these issues what you find out. I'm just as curious as the next guy. But appreciate your time, and good luck.
Thank you, gentlemen. You have a great day.
You too, Bill.
All right. Thanks, Bill. All right. Well, that was Representative Bill Allemand from House District 58 in Natrona County. And, Bill, he wasn't joking when he says he kind of lives out in the boonies. He's got a beautiful place, I guess his brother's place, family place. But it's super pretty out there.
Yeah, he's kind of sitting in a hole, so you don't even know you're there until he's already got you in his sights.
Well,
Just saying.
He literally does live in a hole. But anyway, so yet another guy running for re-election. You know what? I thought he was really straightforward. I mean,
Well, that's Bill.
yeah.
You mentioned before he even came on that he was a straight shooter, and now you've seen it yourself.
Yep. No, I really like Bill, and I like how forthcoming he was. All right, so let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, got another piece in the turkey vulture. This one, I don't quite know what to make of it, but we'll talk about it when we come back. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It is Open Line Friday, my friends. If you want to be part of the show, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Now, Ken, it has been a long time since I've been able to do this.
Riding along in my automobile, cruising and playing the radio, with no particular place to go.
Riding around in my automobile, just not in Washington. There actually is a bill in Washington State that makes it illegal to drive around in your automobile with no particular place to go. I talk
That-
about taking the fun out of stuff.
That was the big man. I could not wait to get a driver's license, and half of my life was cruising Maine, or taking a ride and running over the mountains or wherever.
Something.
Just getting out to drive.
Yeah, well, you can't do that anymore. Not
Well,
in Washington,
Fortunately for me, I don't want to do that anymore. I've driven enough. I'm
especially
tired
the
of
last
driving.
couple of months.
Yeah, he's tired of driving.
But in,
yeah, look at that.
In the state of Washington, they passed Senate Bill 626. And it makes aimless driving within the state of Washington prohibited as of today, May 15th. And from the governor's letter, and I quote, under the new legislation, individuals may no longer operate a motor vehicle without a clear and lawful destination. Cruising around, joyriding, and driving with no particular place to go are now prohibited under state law. The law does not apply when driving to or from work, school, medical appointments, church, or other necessary activities. All drivers must be able to clearly state a destination if stopped by law enforcement.
You have papers.
Your papers,
Show me
please.
your papers.
Show me your papers. State officials say the law was introduced in response to rising traffic congestion, unsafe road behaviors, and increasing incidents of distracted and purposeless driving. How are you going to enforce this one?
So now, instead of doing that, now the trick is going to be, you order delivery from what's the delivery service that does all that?
DoorDash.
Yeah, so DoorDash vehicles are going to be everywhere. Ubers are going to be everywhere because you can't drive yourself without being harassed.
Well, yeah, and so in Washington, unless you have a particular place to go, there's no driving for you, my friend. I mean, you just you stay home, and we will bring your food to you.
Or we will not.
Or we will not, depending on how things go.
We have ways to make you hungry.
But isn't that just the thing that states like Washington and Colorado and California, it is all about control. That's what it is. You have to be able to, if you're a leftist communist, you pinko, whatever, you have to be able to control the population, and you have to be able to tell people what to do, because if you can't, well then, your populace is going to find out that you really don't know what you're doing. And perfect example, let me give you another one. From Reason.com, a perfect place for this article to show up. A new bipartisan bill seeks to protect free-range parenting and redefine neglect. Now, Ken, do you know what free-range parenting is?
I don't. I know about free-range chickens.
It's very similar without all the eggs. Sometimes there are eggs. But evidently, free-range parenting is when you just tell your kids to go outside and play. And your kids hop on their bicycle, and they perhaps ride down to the creek and go fishing. Or they ride to the baseball park, and when the street lights come on, they come home. That is free-range parenting.
That's how I was raised.
Well, yeah.
Except there were no street lights.
Yeah, okay, so I understand that electricity hadn't been invented yet, or they hadn't installed it in cities when you were little. But, free-range parenting, that's when you tell your kids to go outside and have fun. But there has been an effort afoot to classify that as neglect. That is, you don't know what your kid is doing. And, there are so many abductions, and the Department of Family Separation has to look into all of these cases of free-range parenting. Before I get into this piece, let's go ahead and take a call. And let's see here. Let's pick Jerry. Jerry, are you a fan of free-range parenting?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, actually, you might be. What's on your mind this morning, Jerry?
This thing with Rebecca running.
Yeah.
I know we always say, get your vote in for primary, get as many in as you can. And I just can't see how. And I really like Rebecca. I don't know her personally, but I have never seen anything that I can't respect from her. But it just makes me question why we need this.
Okay, well, I go
And
ahead,
what
Jim.
you're, what,
Yeah, Jerry, you mentioned the
just-
primary. You understand that this plan, and I'm neither defending it or encouraging it, I'm just simply trying to get the facts out there. This plan has nothing to do with the primary. She cannot be a part
Well,
of the primary. She's aside from that.
okay, if someone puts a vote down for her, though, how can the vote go for Brett Bean or whatever?
She's not on the ballot, sir.
Yeah, so in the
Oh,
primary,
okay.
so the primary election, and I'm glad you brought this up, Jerry, because this is, I've seen a lot of comments online.
There's a lot of confusion.
Lot of confusion. So the primary election is only the major parties. So the Republican Party has their primary election, and then the Democrat Party has their so-called election, because we know, it's the Democrats, so we don't really know if it's an election or not. But the minor parties, so the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party. I don't know if we have one of those in Wyoming, but all of the minor parties do not participate in the primary election. It's only in the general election.
Okay, so we don't have a chance of someone changing to the Constitutional Party and not being able to get a vote in for someone on the regular Republican Party.
Not at this point. As of the 13th, you could no
Okay.
longer change your parties.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's
Okay.
the other question, right? So if you're registered Republican, well, now you can't change your party registration in Wyoming. But let's say it was yesterday or
Right
the day.
after the 13th.
Right, but let's say it was yesterday or the day before. Actually, it would be 2 days ago, because today is the 15th. But you could change to the Constitution Party, and then you could vote. You wouldn't vote in the primary election. But as it is, my pal Rebecca will not be on the primary election ballot, only on the general ballot.
And if during
Okay.
the primary, her plan is if during the primary anyone but Barlow wins, she will just simply bow out.
Yeah.
But if we're left a point where Barlow is basically the anointed one, now there's somebody that you can send a protest vote to, if nothing less, or perhaps even she'll work her tail off and try to go and actually beat him. Certainly, I would like to see
Right,
that.
and she explained that to me, through messaging. We've communicated through messaging,
Sure.
but I never really got a clear. I've never seen this happen before myself that I paid attention to anyway.
Yeah,
And I was just worried about that part of it.
well, and I think a lot of people have the same concerns, that and it's just general general confusion, because you do something like this, and then it takes there's a lot of explaining to do, but I do think it's creative, because the electoral history, the primary election history in Wyoming, is that if you get more than two people in the election, well, the vote gets split, and the more liberal guy wins, and we've got a lot of evidence to that. So in this case, whomever wins the primary goes to the general election, and they'll face Rebecca and whomever the Democrats choose. So it's an interesting thing, man.
Well, and I thank you too. I'll have to go back and remove all my sad emojis on her texts and comments and everything.
All right, Jerry. I appreciate the call, my friend. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week, my friend.
All right. God bless our republic.
God bless our republic. You see, that's one of the biggest problems with this whole idea, is that most people don't know how our elections work, and that's not a reflection on Rebecca or the Constitution Party. That's an indictment of our school system, that most people don't know anything about how our system works.
It is kind of a shame. I still haven't made up my mind. I think it's a novel idea, and it makes sense in a lot of ways. I think this is just my preference. I think had I been planning what she did, I would have quietly done what she did and changed parties and not say a word about it until after the primary, and then come out with guns blazing or just quietly slip out the back door. The way that it came out, it had some confusion. Now, what perhaps she was thinking was if she's going to have enough traction to make the last 2 months, she kind of needs to have people thinking about it in advance.
Well,
I'm
that
guessing
and
that might be what she
and
did.
considering the amount of confusion
Yeah.
that's around right now, I think maybe it was a good idea to come out and announce when she did, because now there's a couple months to explain how this whole thing works.
Yeah, Lucy.
And the other thing too, Ken, think about this: that with Rebecca jumping in as the Constitution Party, there's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to hopefully get educated about how our system actually works. All right, so let's get back to this whole free range parenting thing. I think I found this article to be fascinating.
Free range candidacy. That's what we.
There we go. Free range candidacy, courtesy of my pal Rebecca.
No, we don't want open primaries.
No, we don't want open primary. So free range parenting is when you tell your kids to go out and play, and if you're not back by the time that street light is on, I'm going to have your hide. That's how I grew up. It's I would tell my parents, hey, I'm going fishing, and I'll be down at the creek. And I might be at one end of town. I may be at the other end of town. I may have got fed up and just gone back to the house. Who knew? From Reason.com, and I quote, a bipartisan bill introduced in Congress yesterday pushes states to, quote, promote childhood independence rather than investigate or punish the parents who permit it. The bill lists 7 examples of decent parents investigated for letting their kids play outside, bike, walk to the store, etc. 5 of these stories were first reported by Reason.com. Representatives Blake Moore, Janet McClellan, and Virginia Fox are co-sponsoring the Promoting Childhood Independence and Resilience Act. I quote, I want kids to go exploring without just being every minute planned for them, says Moore, a father of 4. No parent, he adds, should be investigated for letting their kids do that. But increasingly, that is precisely what is happening. That if your kids are out, hopefully not running amok with their pals on their bicycle and stealing apples off of the neighbor's apple tree, well, in some states, that counts as neglect. In 2023, McClellan was instrumental in getting Virginia to pass its own Reasonable Childhood Independence Act. And let's see here. As lawmakers there noted, some parents choose to let their kids roam free, but others, especially those financially strapped, have no choice. In other words, you can't buy toys for your kids, so go outside and play, is how my mother would have put it. Letting your kid come home with a latchkey while you're working your second shift isn't neglect, but it can certainly be the result of poverty. The new national legislation provides a straightforward framework for states to distinguish ordinary childhood activities from actual neglect or abuse. Neglect is when you put your child in obvious or serious danger. In other words, here, Johnny, let me fire up the chainsaw and you can go play with it. Okay, that would probably be neglect. But letting your kid ride his bicycle around the neighborhood, it doesn't really qualify.
So think about this. I read a book not too long ago about 2 young boys. One was 10, one was like 7. And the first trip they did was horseback, and they went, I think, like from St. Louis to the West Coast.
Okay. On horseback.
On horseback by themselves, 10 and 7 years old.
Wow.
And then when they were about 13 and 9 or something like that, they did a motorcycle trip all the way across the continent from the East Coast to the West Coast by themselves.
And they lived?
They not only lived, they thrived. They became very well known. They were treated like heroes as they rolled into a town. And they were taken. And this is not the days when they had a cell phone so they could keep in touch with their folks,
By the way, I just for the record, I don't think it's a good idea to let your kid ride a motorcycle all the way across the continent.
I probably wouldn't do it, but I bring this up just to show a change, not only in attitudes, but, my granddad left home when he was about 11 or 12 and took a job on a freight wagon running from Missouri down to Texas. And from there, he started Cowboy and trailing cattle from Texas up into Montana. And he was doing this at 13 years old.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about what were kids like 10, 11, 12, 13, 100 years ago versus now.
Very different.
And why is it different? It's completely off to the
Well,
side
I mean,
of
the
that,
answer to your
but it's
question is,
interesting.
what are 13-year-olds doing now? Well, they're sitting in front of the TV playing video games.
Yeah.
Now, here's why this act is being proposed. Unfortunately, says Diane Redleaf, the Let Grows, that's an organization, legal consultant, many states still operate under laws and policies that give governmental authorities the discretion to tell parents they cannot allow their kids to be unattended or on pain of being investigated for neglect or threatened with family separation, the aforementioned Department of Family Separations. Rafi Mativ knows this threat all too well. In 2015, when he was 10, he and his sister walked home from the park in Silver Spring, Maryland. Someone saw them unsupervised and called authorities. That night, Child Protective Services came to their home. Quote, they threatened multiple times to take us away. Mativ, now 21 and a college senior, recalls, quote, they forced my dad to sign something. They say, if you don't sign this thing, then your kids that says you will comply with our demands, or at least temporarily, we're going to take your kids away. And that's what it felt like was the end goal, at least from the child's eyes. They thought that my parents were dangerous and we'd be better off somewhere else. Eventually, the Mativs were cleared, but their story made parents realize their rational decisions could be second-guessed by authorities who saw childhood only through the lens of risk. Over the years, many investigated parents have told me that their caseworkers said their kids could have been kidnapped. Now, how common is kidnapping really? I mean, you know, if you watch the TV, kids are kidnapped all the time, and there's roving bands of people grabbing kids up at every opportunity. But how common is that?
Well, we do have a problem with that, especially young girls. And then there's also estranged parents.
Okay.
So those are issues. But how common? I really don't know.
Well, it's interesting. We asked that question because Warwick Cairns, the author of the book How to Live Dangerously, crunched the numbers and found that for a child to be statistically likely to be kidnapped by a stranger, you'd have to leave them outside unattended for 750,000 years, according to statistics.
They wouldn't be a child that long.
No, they wouldn't. Now, I suppose that that's a risk. The problem is that any risk presented by letting kids do things on their own is at least offset by the risk of not letting them. For at least the last 50 or 60 years, kids' independence and free play have been declining. Today, 1 in 5 American kids, aged 13 to 17, has a diagnosable mental, emotional, or behavioral disorder in any given year. Now, I mean, correlation does not necessarily equal causation, but I got to tell you, man, I would have been a very different person if my parents hadn't kicked my butt outside and said, go have fun.
When's culture's changed? You know, all the kids are in sports now and then, but they're all organized. They've got official leagues and all that sort of stuff. When's the last time you just saw a bunch of neighborhoods get together and start a pickup game?
Yeah, been a long time.
That's something we did all the time as kids. We just, whoever was out there, we'd go, or we'd play. What's the game with the flag, or capture the flag, or whatever. You know, we played games like, and we'd be out till well past dark in everybody's neighborhoods, and it completely different culture.
Well, and I remember, you know, growing up in Buffalo, and you know, we might be able to make the argument that Buffalo's a little bit different than other towns, but man, in our neighborhood, which I guess would have been, you know, probably four or 5 blocks by 5 blocks. I mean, all the other parents, they knew all the kids, right? And if we did something wrong, we knew that the telephone was going to be ringing at the house, and you know, we'd probably get a
whooping from them too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
In my neighborhood,
come here.
It's like all the parents had free reign.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's an interesting time that we live in, that we can't let kids be kids, and that we even have the term free range parenting is offensive to me. I mean, to let kids be kids, man. Kick them outside and say, here's a baseball bat and a glove and a ball, and you know, go have fun.
And here's your insurance policy for the glass.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's
before we wander from that one though. Bill sent us a message.
Okay.
And he just said it made a mistake on the show. Data centers use up to 5 million, not 50 million.
Okay. All right. Leading
So,
with our mistakes. I
yes.
like it.
Well done, Bill. Thank you.
Well done. All right. So let's go ahead and take our last break. And when we come back, we'll finish up. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Friday. It's Open Line Friday. Having a tremendous time on the program. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for, well, just, everything you do for this program. I really appreciate it. All right. So, Ken, do you know who Brandon Gill is?
For the sake of the show, no. Please tell me.
Okay. Brandon Gill, congressman. And he is the guy that asks the questions that all of us are asking, but he does it in public. Kind of like Ron White, in public. I didn't want to be drunk in the bar. I didn't want to be drunk in public. I wanted to be drunk in the bar.
You threw me into public.
They threw me into public. But Brandon Gill, he's the guy that says the things that all of us are thinking. And, he first came on... I shouldn't say came on the stage because that's not entirely accurate, but he got everybody's attention when he had the CEO of NPR in front of him. And so just to give you a little history lesson of Mr. Brandon Gill, let's go ahead and play the video. And this is pretty long. We probably won't play all of it, but Brandon Gill, NPR, play it.
Miss Marr, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
You're not. That's
from
good
Karl
to hear.
Marx,
It's
by the
interesting
way.
because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You
Don't know where
tweeted
statement
that in
comes from.
reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't. You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what
Okay.
it
All right,
was
all right.
to be.
Okay, it goes on for quite a while from there. But like I said, he's the guy that says the things that all of us are thinking. So let's play the next one. This is he has a federal grant administrator in front of him, and he's asking about how we're spending money on all of these federal grants. Go ahead and play the next one. This one's called Transgender Boys, Ken. Here we go.
B+ inclusive teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. I can't even say this without laughing. Do you think that is a useful form of our tax spend?
I'm not familiar with that grant, but I think bench research, government investment in scientific and
Teen
pharmaceutical
pregnancy
research.
for transgender boys. Do you think that is a useful spend of our tax dollars?
I think government investment in all kinds of scientific research is of the utmost importance.
Including pregnancy prevention for transgender boys. Okay.
Okay. All right. So again, another example of the questions that you and I would ask. Really? You're spending my tax dollars on figuring out whether or not boys can get pregnant. Now, before you say that, oh, that's in other states, that sort of thinking doesn't happen here. Really? On the floor of the Wyoming House of Representatives, Representative Julie Jarvis advocated for allowing people to change their sex on their birth certificate. Now, why would you do that if you didn't believe in a lot of this sort of junk? The truth is, a lot of this thinking happens. Representative Elisa Campbell, she was right along with Julie Jarvis in many of these stupid transgender ideas. So now, and we're up to speed now. Just yesterday, Brandon Gill was doing an interview with Breitbart News, and he gets to the point of where all of this is heading. And from the first video, he was talking to the NPR CEO, and his very first point was, "Hey, a lot of your thinking is infused with cultural Marxism." And a lot of the policies that are coming out now, I mean, that's exactly what it is. Go ahead and play the interview, Brandon Gill, where the Democrats are.
Congressman, what do you think the Democrat Party stands for at this moment? Do they have a set of values or principles that they're actually trying to get enacted? Because from my vantage point, it seems like they're just walking around calling people racist and fascist again.
Well, there's a couple things that seem to kind of glue the Democrat coalition together. And the first thing is, of course, a hatred for the president, for everything that he does. And that's been around for quite some time. But I think that you see a degree of sort of cultural Marxism that the left has pursued for a long time, that has kept their it's to break up American society into distinct groups, whether those groups are based on race or ethnicity or religion, or sexual preference, and sort of push the message that those groups have been discriminated against historically for a long period of time, and that the Democrats are somehow going to be their savior. It's wildly insulting, and it is quite literally taking a Marxist economic framework and putting it on top of civil society and culture more broadly. but that has been their political strategy. There's been very little substantive message that they've been able to articulate. Beyond that, it comes down to, we hate the president, we hate Christians, we hate white people, and we want to pursue policies that punish the people that we don't like and reward the people who we pretend to like. So I don't think that there's a whole lot.
All right. So, before you say, oh, that is not what the Democrats are, really, pay attention to the messaging coming out of the Democrat Party. You can break it down almost every time into one principle: the oppressed versus the oppressor. And the reason why the left is so interested in identity politics, that is, we have the LGBTQZXPWDSM group. We have women, other minorities, and it doesn't. You can just use your imagination to come up with all of the different groups that that the Democrats are trying to create in society. But you've heard the phrase, well, we have to have transgender rights, we have to have minority rights. Well, the truth is, you just have rights. I mean, there are no rights for individual groups, and so everything that comes out of the Democrat Party is you have to be viewed through the lens of the oppressed versus the oppressor. And I'll give you 3 guesses who the oppressor is in all of these cases. It's white people, it's Christians, it's conservatives. Now think about this, and all you got to do is go to the Wyoming Democrat Party's Facebook page, and you'll see this sort of narrative all the time. It is the Freedom Caucus trying to take away people's rights. The Freedom Caucus doesn't like this group. The Freedom Caucus doesn't like that group. Really, in order for their plans to work, that is, spend as much money as you can, create the largest government programs that you can, the only way that works is if you have a group of people that are oppressed in some way. Either they're too poor, or they're or they're a minority, or they're being disadvantaged, or they're being discriminated against. And to do that, you have to have an oppressor. You have to have a boogeyman. And one of the reasons why you see the Freedom Caucus everywhere on social media, Better Wyoming, that's Liz Storr's group, Protect Wyoming. I mean, there are so many different groups that their number one target is the Freedom Caucus. Why? Is it because they can disprove the policies that and the legislation that the Freedom Caucus has championed? No, they can't. And like Representative Bill Allemand said, his response to anybody that has Freedom Caucus derangement syndrome is, give me one example of one thing that the Freedom Caucus has done that you disagree with it. Not what they've said, not their attitude, not the way that they do business, one thing that they've done that you disagree with. And most people will not be able to give you an answer to that. But really what the left in Wyoming is trying to do is trying to create the boogeyman, that is the group that is oppressing all of these other groups. And if you hear probably today, maybe over the weekend, I'm going to publish another article about the Protect Wyoming group. And I've got the audio from inside one of their meetings. And I mean, it very clearly says that we just have to get rid of all of these carpetbagging a-holes. I mean, that's almost a direct quotation from the audio. And so for the left's plan to work, they have to have a boogeyman. In order for their boogeyman plan to work, they can't be challenged on anything. Because when you're exposed as the Marxist that you are, the leftist, the redcoat, and you're not able to explain your position in any way, shape, or form, then your plan falls apart. The truth is, in the Wyoming political spectrum, there is one group that is advocating for freedom and liberty. There is another group that is advocating for bigger government, more government control, more government spending, and less freedom. That's the choice that you have in this election. And since today, or I guess it was yesterday, was the first day of the filing period, you need to be very aware of who these candidates are. Don't just follow blindly. Don't pay attention to all this Freedom Caucus derangement syndrome. Do your own research. Actually call these people. You heard Bill Allemand give you his phone number. If you want to know about him, give him a call. If he doesn't answer the phone, he'll call you back. If you want to talk to Agent 29, give him a call. Send him an email. He'll talk to you. or any of these folks that are on the right side of the political spectrum in Wyoming. The folks that won't give you a straight answer are those on the other side. And I know this for a fact because I've been hounding a couple of left-leaning candidates for weeks now, trying to say, come sit down in the studio. If you don't want to sit in the studio, we'll go to the park. If you don't want to go to the park, we'll go to the library. If you don't want to go to the library, we'll go to the coffee shop. If you don't want to go to the coffee shop, we'll go to Perkins. Anywhere. But let's just sit down and have a conversation. And most of them won't because they can't defend their own positions. And we've talked about it a lot this week on the program, that you hear a lot of candidates say, well, I'm just going to listen. What that means is they don't want to tell you what they really believe. They don't want to answer the questions of, tell me about your campaign logo. Why does it say forward on it? Why is it in blue? What does that mean? What does it mean to be a Republican? Every article that you see about some of these redcoat candidates is, I'm running as a Republican. Well, why the heck doesn't it say that you are a Republican? No, instead it says, I'm running as a Republican, which is the first red flag to say that the person that said that or that the article is written about is clearly not a Republican. So, my friends, we've got the weekend coming up. We're probably going to see a whole bunch of more people file for office today. There was a ton of them yesterday. And so just be aware of who these people are. Talk to them. Learn about them. And if you can't find anything online, well, then give them a call. All right, so one more time, let me just give you the rundown of what's going to happen on the program. I'll be out of the office on Tuesday, so we won't have Cowboy State Politics Live. We will on Wednesday, though. And on Wednesday at 8:30, we'll have now Representative Tony Locke. At 9 o'clock, we'll have candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, Frank Chapman, on the program. And then on Thursday, we'll have Jillian Balo. So we got a busy week next week, and I just can't wait for it. I'm super excited.
Plus, you always got me.
That's true.
Well, not always.
Well, sometimes.
Often.
Occasionally.
Sometimes. Once in a while.
Once in a while.
It's like the two old guys sitting up in the balcony. Oh, it was horrible.
Oh, it's horrible. All right, my friends. Thank you for watching the program. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.